Okay, good evening to everybody in Africa and the Middle East and parts of Europe. Good afternoon to those of you in Europe, and a very good morning and afternoon to those of you in the US and Canada. It's great to have you on the Packard Network Live, and I'm very pleased to have a very special guest, somebody that I've been looking forward to having on this program for quite a long time. Live from Lagos, Nigeria is Mr. Paul Solomon. Paul, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mr. Brett Packard. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. It's an absolute pleasure to have you as well. And we're going to talk about a topic that I know a lot of people are excited and also at the same time concerned about, because it involves the future leadership of what will soon be the largest component of the global workforce, the generation Y and Zs. And we're going to talk a bit about that today, and more specifically, the work that Paul is doing in Nigeria and beyond Nigeria and the broader part of Africa, as well as other parts of the world, because many of the concepts and topics we're going to talk about today, while it might be applicable in Africa, I think when it comes to leadership, it's fair to, I'm going to go ahead and boldly state this, that the United States is far from the role model of what good leadership looks like. I would probably give it maybe an F on a scale of A to F, meaning F being the lowest grade. I would give the United States for capable, relevant leadership. And if I were betting, I would say that Nigeria is probably far ahead of the United States. And I think the evidence for this would be in the absolute disaster of the Great Resignation and what the putting profits before people has done to millions of people. So we're going to talk a bit about that, and happy to debate it. If anybody would like to come in and demonstrate to Paul and myself that the United States is capable of great leadership I'm talking on a broad basis. Let's certainly have that debate as we get into the particular topics here. But before I do that, just a little bit of further intro to Paul and why I invited him to come on the program. And Paul is basically a life coach. He is a teens leadership mentor and a personal leadership enthusiast. He inspires the emerging generation to develop character, cultivate the spirit of leadership and giving. He's also the founder and creative director of the Green Inspire Foundation, which is a youth-based NGO in Nigeria that influences young people to embrace the culture of personal leadership and development. Paul is also a trained pastor and a seasoned administrator as a graduate of public administration. He's really passionate about leadership. He and I I almost think that we're related at times, talking passionately about leadership because we both believe from our heart that is what the future needs: stronger, more capable, more relevant leaders in all facets of government, business, education, and you can just go right down the line with that as well. So we're lined up with that, and that's why I had him on the program. And Paul is helping young people discover their uniqueness and maximize their leadership potential. So we'll talk a bit about the work that he's doing. We'll also talk a little bit towards the end of this conversation about a very important topic of addiction and drugs, and making sure that we all as leaders in our communities do what we can to prevent this horrendous problem of addiction and drugs from further penetrating the community, and to encourage those that do have the problem to seek help, because that help does exist and we want to get them off the drugs. So I think that's pretty much the agenda, why Paul is here, why I'm here. And Paul, I'm going to take a sip of my Cuban coffee that Mr. Joe Gonzalez sent to me, and just welcome you again to the program. And maybe you could just say a few words before we get started.
Thank you very much, Mr. Packard. You are one of the finest leaders I've come in contact with, both on ground and on social media. You are doing an amazing job. I love what you're doing. I love you. I love what you're doing. Keep soaring. Keep doing what you're doing. You're the best.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you. Today's about you, not me, but thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. I think it's clear both you and I have mutual respect for each other, and we're doing very common work. And I really do appreciate your kind words. Thank you for that. Paul, before we get into the conversation, let me welcome, let's see, we've got, 25 people between LinkedIn and YouTube tuning in right now, and that'll probably move around a bit, but we've got, let's see, we've got my good friend Rania from Greece. Thank you very much for taking the time to tune in. We've got Regina from Philadelphia, Regina Hutchings. Thank you for taking the time to tune in as well. Appreciate that. Yes, that's right. And we have Padre John from Ghana. So I don't know if you know Padre Paul, but Padre John is a great follower here. And Padre, thank you for tuning in from Ghana. It's great to have Africa represented. I know that we'll have people from places that I've spent significant time in my career in Southern Africa, and a little bit of time in Eastern Africa. But for now, we've got also Nadia is here from Ann Arbor, Michigan. Nadia, thank you so much. Nadia is helping female entrepreneurs with healthcare and a wide array of other things. So she's inspiring a lot of people. And so that is, we have, let's see, I think Joe Gonzalez is in the room as well. So Joe, thank you for taking the time to join. Appreciate that. And I'll be coming. I'll be coming back to the LinkedIn community to have engagement with all of you as well throughout the course of the program. And but for now, Paul and I are going to kick off talking. So if you're in the audience, please do tee up any questions, comments, anything that you'd like to ask Paul or myself throughout the course of the next hour. Please feel free to do that as well. So Paul, before we just kind of as a warm up, before we really get into the generational piece that we promised everybody we talk about, Doug Hancock, welcome to the program. It's great to have you here as well. Thank you. I appreciate all of your support. Paul, before we get into the main topic, maybe you could just take a couple of minutes to talk about how you wound up on your current mission in your life. So maybe you can start from elementary school and high school and talk about how you got from there to where you're at today.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Mr. Brett.
Mm-hmm.
It's been an amazing journey. It's been an amazing journey from elementary up to the point where I am. I would be able to give you stage by stage details of how I got here, but I'm going to try my best to give a clear picture of how it has been. Right? It hasn't been a smooth ride, but by God's grace, God has been helping. God has been helping, empowering, equipping me at each stage until I got to this point.
Right.
Okay, they say life is the journey, and so is leadership. Your journey of life begins the day you were born, and your journey of leadership begins the day you discover your true self. Okay, I remember when, as a young man, as a teenager, I was just like every other teenager, without a sense of direction, without a sense of purpose, going around like other young people, just following the trend, following the youthful exuberance. And that was where I got entangled with drugs and addiction. I struggled with that for a little while, thinking I was a big boy. I was among the clique of big boys in town, okay, being entangled with addiction. But being the way I am, the way God wired me, I am this young person that is so observant. With that, I mean to say, whatever I am involved in, whatever I'm doing, I try to observe and know the value of these things that I'm doing. I try to look at in depth into what I'm doing. What value am I getting from this? And those were some of the questions that helped shaping me to become who I am today. So as a young man in addiction, I kept doing this thing, and I kept asking myself, is this right? Okay, and most times when I get involved in marijuana and some other cigarettes and alcohol, I do these things in isolation. I do these things in secret, okay? And because I don't want people to see me, I don't want my parents to know this is what I'm doing. I don't want people who are responsible to see me as irresponsible. And then I began to ask myself, so if this seems like this, so why am I doing it? Okay, if this is good, so why am I hiding and doing it? Okay, and that helped me. Though addiction is not something you can just break free from on your own, but along the line, the grace of God, the help of God was part of what helped me. Like you can't help somebody who doesn't need help, right? So you can only help those who need help. No matter how much you try, you cannot help a man or a woman who does not need help. Okay, so I needed help at the time, and I cried out to God. Okay, I'm a believer, I'm a Christian. In that process too was where I became a true Christian. Okay, and so God helped me. I saw the hand of God upon my life, and I break free from this addiction. I break free from the addiction for over 14 years. And after 14 years, a wide, what will I call it? A wide tornado hits me at the stage of my life at that time, and I became like helpless. And that was where I drifted back into this addiction. And then I struggled with it for a couple of months, not up to 2 years. But same God who helped me the first time came in again and helped me and break me free from it. And between that time, I've gone back to help myself, develop myself, done so much for myself. And today I am a better person. I am a better person. And having experienced this, I know there are a whole lot of young people out there who are struggling this same way. A whole lot of young people who are just moving around in circles without a sense of purpose, without a sense of direction, where to go, the right thing to do and all that, okay? And so the passion came on me to help some of these young people who might be going through some of these kind of challenges. And that is where that is what gave birth to the Green Inspire Fountain Foundation. That's also what gave birth to Green Inspire Fountain Foundation. And here we are to say in the beginning, that's been an amazing journey, and God is helping us. And I'm grateful for a mentor, a coach like you. My connection with you took the game to another whole level. And when you came into my life, I've learned a lot from you, following you on LinkedIn, communicating with you, engaging with you have added so much value to me, that's shaping me, and I appreciate the attention you give me. I appreciate your love, your kindness, your support. It has been amazing. It has been amazing. With people like you, people like us won't have to give up. We'll be
Absolutely.
motivated, we'll be inspired, we'll be encouraged to keep doing what we are doing. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So this is my journey in summary so far.
That is a great, inspiring summary. And before I go further, I'm touched by your kind words. Thank you. That's why I'm doing this, is to hear the impact that, even if it's just a little bit on one person, because every human being, as you know, is important in this world. And so for me to hear that from you means a lot to me. And I thank you very much for acknowledging that. And also thank you for doing the same thing to all of the youth that you're inspiring across Nigeria there in person. And all that anybody needs to do is to follow you on LinkedIn, and they can see how you're sharing your journey to impact those around you. And I would encourage other people to pick up many of the tactics that you're doing to impact the people, the youth in their community. So that's great, Paul. Thank you. I want to kind of get into leadership now. And, we've got the Generation Y and Generation Z, which, as you know, they're very different types of generation. I'm on the borderline of a Gen X and a baby boomer, so it's debatable which bucket I fall into. But I consider myself a dinosaur. But this dinosaur understands one thing, and that is that people are the most important thing, and people make the world go round. God created human beings and people, and so I have the belief, as you know, that leaders, their main responsibility and accountability is to create an environment like you've done for the youth around you, where people can be the very best they can be. People can perform at their potential. So I think that, and that is lacking. And I was critical of the United States at the beginning here, and that's backed up by embarrassing evidence, and also backed up by 30 years of myself working across 30 countries as an imperfect leader, because I am not perfect at all. But I did learn after 19 years what real leadership is. And now I'm on a mission to spread that, like you're doing in Nigeria and Africa. I'm on a mission to spread that globally. And so I think that with that as a backdrop, the Generation Y and Z populations are crucial. And I'm glad that you talked about the work that you're doing to help people at Green Inspire with the addiction and the drug issue, because many people in many countries, while they may not resort to drugs or addiction, they might resort to social media as an addiction. To certain things. And what we're going to talk about today is the corporate, we tend to take these younger generations, the Gen Y and Z, and who have grown up in an environment where they have been protected somewhat. They have been encouraged to accept recognition and rewards in many cases for coming in last place. They have um, being trained and taught that they can be successful in the real world without putting forth a lot of effort. And so and through the many of the educational systems, and they have not been properly educated in some parts of the world. So I'm not saying this is applicable everywhere, but what I'm saying is that these two generations have had their expectations set in such a manner that when they finish their education and they're thrown into the corporate world and they get into a company and they suddenly learn that the real world is quite different than what they were taught, then they're in for a shock. And some of them resort to, I'm not going to say necessarily drugs, some do, alcohol, what have you, but also social media or something to help numb the pain that they're experiencing in the real world and the stress. And the point here, I'm just going to make this point and then we're going to open up the dialogue. The point here is that these two generations have done nothing wrong. So it's not their fault. It's not their fault that they're in this situation. Okay. And it just makes my heart bleed when I hear people say, this millennial's a big problem, and the Generation Z, they've been pampered, they've been all of that. They have not been. Okay. The problem here are not the young people and the future workforce. The problem are the leaders and the people running this corporate system, because what happened is in the 1970s, led by the United States and Wall Street, profits were placed, shareholder value, shareholder growth were placed as the top priority. And in the 1980s, the 1990s, that became institutionalized. And so today, in the year 2022, profits are everything. So it's no wonder that profits are placed before people, and that's the history of it. And so to take generation Y and Z and to throw them into that antiquated system that no longer, in my opinion, is relevant to the people, to our youth, is just, it makes my heart bleed. And this is not their fault. These two generations are some of the brightest, most energetic people that I've met my entire life. I mean, I wish I would have known what many of the young people today know at their age. And so with all of that as a backdrop, I'm sorry to spend so much time, but I wanted to kind of set the frame here for you, Paul, and for the audience, is that the main message I want to get across why we're talking about this today is, and I'll just sum up what I said, these two generations, okay, our future are just begging to be led by relevant leaders. And right now, they're being thrown into a system, and we'll talk about solutions throughout the rest of this conversation, but they're being thrown into a corporate environment and asked to swim when they've never been trained how to swim. And it's just, and what we need to do, instead of training them how to swim, we need to build a new pool. Okay, that is maybe they don't need to learn how to swim. Maybe instead of swimming, they need to do gymnastics or something like that, because the world has changed a lot since 1970.
Absolutely.
We are in the year 2022 trying to put our young people into a 1970s system. And in my opinion, that's why there's a problem. And that problem is not with Generation Y. It's not with Generation Z. The problem is with the baby boomers and Generation X. Any comments on that before we dive into it?
Okay, that's so deep and that's so much. You're right to say it hasn't been the fault of Generation Y and Generation Z for where they are or for how life is to them today. I agree with that 100%. I wrote something on LinkedIn this morning about leaders have a responsibility to mentor other leaders. I said it takes a true leader to identify a true leader. It takes a true leader to discover a potential true leader. Okay, so leaders have a responsibility to discover other young leaders and invest in them, invest leadership in them. Okay, one of the high mark of great leadership is reproducing yourself in other leaders. Is turning followers into leaders. Okay, but just like you said, the leaders, the current leaders have failed in their responsibility. I will narrow that back to Nigeria or to Africa.
Yeah.
One of the most dreading challenge of Africa today is that of leadership. One of the hardest challenge we have in Africa, in Nigeria, is that of leadership. We have people in position of leadership, but these people, they are not leaders. They are simply men doing business. Okay, like I can narrow that to politics. Now, what we have in politics today is not leadership. We have businessmen doing the business of politics. Okay, and that is a reason for the challenge that we have in Africa. That is the reason for the challenge we have in Africa. They are not doing what they ought to do. They invest into politics, get into position of politics, and do the business they came in to do without offering leadership, without exerting leadership. Now, there's this thought I have, this misconception a lot of people have about leadership. I'll just share three. A lot of people used to think leadership is about the position. Leadership is not about the position.
Right.
Some think leadership is about the title, but that's wrong on itself. Leadership is not about the title. And some think leadership is an authority. No, leadership is not an authority. Leadership is a lifestyle, is a mindset, is a way of thinking. A thought came to me some months back, and I was meditating, and I got this thought that the future is leadership. The future of humanity is leadership. So it is better for us to prepare the Generation Z and Generation Y for that future. Otherwise, it's going to be disastrous. Just like you said, it's going to be disastrous. If the United States recruits an army, they need to train this army, right? They need to train, these armies need to go through training. Otherwise, they give them arms and they go into the street to be disastrous. Okay, that is what leadership we need to do about leadership.
Yes.
In schools today, like in Nigeria, in Africa, a young person will go through school from elementary without being exposed to principles of personal development, and they graduate out of school. Some of them don't know. That's why you find some of them at the beer parlors, at the smoking joint, the marijuana clubs, social media, just to get happy hormones.
Right. Yeah. So I think that if I Paul, if I could just interject right here, and I want to kind of start shifting this into solutions here. Let me just kind of acknowledge a few of the people that have commented. Rory from Ontario, Canada, has joined us. Thank you, Rory. Appreciate that, and appreciate all the good work you're doing to help youth, specifically youth that are involved in suicide, and that's the work that Rory happens to do. I know him quite well. We have Padre John commenting that for me, leaders are not made, they're born. So thank you for your comment on that as well. I do think that leaders can be developed with the right type of development, and that's what Paul is talking about here. But I see your point. The Derek from Texas is here. Hi, Derek. It's great to have you here. Nadia is saying that leaders need to understand the young generations who are digital natives, who are very resilient and care about sustainability, do not fit within the 9-to-5 description of a job. And that's completely, that is completely true. And Padre is also agreeing with you, Paul, that 500% true that it takes a true leader to find a leader. And I think that that makes a lot of sense. Paul, what I would say as well is that if you, I think we agree with this, and I'll tell you that a lot of what you just said about Nigeria is true in the United States. Wow. The difference is the United States is better about covering it up. Okay. So I'm not going to get into the political front. I don't like to do that a lot, but I understand your point. And I think if we take it back to corporate, the problem in corporate leadership in even in Africa, Africa beyond just Nigeria, that you've got people that you do a job, you do an exceptional job, and then you get promoted, and you get promoted into what? A leader. So all of a sudden, you go from performing a job very well to being responsible for other people to do that job that you've been doing. And you have no idea how to do that. Like, to your point, that you're just promoted up, you get a higher salary, and guess what? You're now in charge, but the only thing you know how to do is the job of the people that are now following you. And that training has to take place. So that personal development, life coaching, there needs to be some formal programs to take place. But I want to kind of get back to the topic of what else can be done from this 1970s system of putting profits ahead of people. And you've got a bunch of Gen X and baby boomers trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. And if it doesn't fit, what happens is they get fired, or they equally bad, they tell the younger generations that if you don't deliver your goals, or if you don't come back to the office, to Nadia's point, you want to work from home, well, you have to work from 9 to 5, or you need to go find another job. That scares people because that is no longer, in many cases, a relevant system. It's originating back in the 1970s, this 9 to 5 type of mentality and that type of thing. So what role do you think empathy plays, Paul, in helping to come up with a solution to this in Nigeria and in Africa? What's your thought on that?
Yeah, that's a fantastic shot there. It's part of what I'm saying, but I just narrowed it to politics and all that. But in the corporate world, I think we need to become more human. All right, we need to understand who we are as humans, and we need to treat other people as humans as well. We need to be flexible. We need to we need to empathize with people, especially with the younger generation. As a leader, even in a position of leadership in the corporate world, your journey to that position wasn't a bed of roses. You went through a lot and you got there. And haven't gotten that to that point, there's a huge responsibility on you to help the upcoming generation so that they won't fall into the same pitfalls that you fell into. They won't go through the same challenges you go through on your journey. That is where the issue of mentoring comes in. The issue of mentoring, it's so key. Even in the corporate world, it is so important, mentoring. Leadership is not complete without mentoring. And for a leader who wants to mentor younger generation, you must have empathy. Empathy is key. There are certain qualities you need to have, and empathy is key of them. You must show kindness. You must be human. You must be human. Okay, you must be human. You must understand that those following you are humans. Show empathy where you need to show empathy. Show encouragement where you need to show encouragement. Show support where you need to show support. Don't just throw away. If the younger generation treat them as human, that alone can go a long way to help them develop themselves. It can go a way to help them develop what's it called, competencies. It can help them develop and a better mindset. Okay, and then they look at you and believe they can do this.
Absolutely, I completely agree, and I think that
they look at you and they know they can do this.
Yep. It's a great point, and having, I think you make some excellent points around empathy and kindness, and creating a safe environment for somebody that let's say that you've got you hire,
that's a word.
Yeah, let's say you hire a young person, right, a Generation Y, into a job. You hire a millennial into a job, and let's say that they're not performing well. Instead of threatening them with their job, have an understanding and maybe have a conversation with them about asking them if they're okay, and also having an environment where if they think they are not doing a good job in their own mind, because they're not going to tell you, or they're afraid they'll get fired, make sure that it's safe for them to say, hey, Paul, I'm worried that I accepted this job and it's just not working out for me. Can you help me? Okay. Can you give me some support? Do you think that do you have any other jobs that maybe I could do with my skill set? Because I like your company, but I've learned after the last few months that I don't want to disappoint you, but I just don't know if I can do this job. And leaders have to make it safe to say that. And right now it's not safe to say that. So what the employee does is they come in and they need to earn that paycheck, and they just keep their head down, and they just hope that their worst nightmare doesn't come through, right?
Yeah.
Is that kind of behavior going on in Nigeria as well?
It is going on. It is the norm. Okay, in Nigeria, that's almost like the norm. I'll give you a scenario.
Yes.
Sometime last month, a young lady who was working for another older guy in a hotel as a receptionist. On this particular day was her off day, her resting day. And she decided to go along with her friends to a political campaign. Sorry, I'm talking about politics here, but I just want to give you a scenario.
No,
she went with her friends to a political campaign.
Yep.
And she took pictures at that campaign and shared these pictures on social media. Now her boss saw this picture, and because the particular candidate she went to campaign for wasn't his candidate, he fired this young lady without asking questions.
Yeah.
Without giving her the opportunity for fair hearing.
Yep.
She fired this young lady. And this young lady need this job to fend for her school, to fend for herself, to take care of herself. Now imagine what will happen to this young lady as she falls back into the street.
Yes.
Imagine what will happen to her. She could go into drugs. She could join. She could link up with the wrong association and get influenced and begin to do negative things and begin to embrace negative social culture. Okay, so these are many more are some the examples we have in Nigeria and in Africa. The place of mentoring, the place of mentoring is really missing. The place of creating a safe environment for the next generation is come back. We need to come back and begin to reshape things. The leaders who are ahead straight. Otherwise, the repercussion will be disastrous. The repercussion will be disastrous. But for the Generation Z and Generation Y, they also have a responsibility to play. You won't say because the older generation is failing, you two need to fail. No. I'll tell you a story. A young man had, an older man had two kids, two young boys. And this man is a drunkard. All right? He's a drunkard. And then he drinks to stupor. And most times he falls along his way on his way home, and people just come and help him. Now he has two sons. And these guys grow up to become teenagers. And one of these children began to drink himself. All right? One of these children began to drink himself to stupor like the dad. And the other one decided not to, other brother. And he said, no, I won't drink like them because I've got my own life to live. And what I see with them is not what I want. Now, Bishop T.D. Jakes said something. Now, when you are born, you look like your parents. But when you die, you look like your decisions. That is so key. That is so key. So what I'm saying, you have a role to play. It's your call, it's your decision. Your future is your call. Your future is your decision. That, just like me, if I wanted to cry out to what the government is doing and all that, I wouldn't be where I am today. I would have been, either this is not where I need to be, this is not what I ought to be doing, and I pulled myself out and began to develop myself. I began my weakness and started working on my strength until I got to where I am today. So the Generation Y and Z, they have a key role to play. They have a responsibility. It is their life. It is their life. They won't have to leave it all in the hands of their leaders who are failing in certain areas.
Right. I agree. I think that's a great point, Paul, that you're making, and I agree with
That's
that. And
just
the point, yeah, the point is that these generations, they do have a role to play as well.
Absolutely.
The point that I want the audience, to the viewers to walk away with is that it's not their fault, but that doesn't mean that they can escape the responsibility. So you're exactly right about that. And I think really what we're saying here, folks, is that leaders, this is not going to change overnight.
Exactly.
I know that it won't change overnight, but the leaders of today need to understand that they are the root cause of the problem, not the younger generations. And that in order to fix the problem, empathy is the solution, where making it safe to communicate when people have a problem, making it safe to, if people feel that they're failing, to raise their hand and say, I need help. Making it safe to say that I think that I can do this job better if it's not a 9 to 5 type of, constraint place as well. And here's why. So I think that's the main point, that I want leadership, because that's what the leadership in the United States, Paul, that's what they have failed to do, is that all of these things, believe it or not, in the United States, in many companies, not all companies. So I'm not saying all companies, folks, but many companies, these are the things that have caused the Great Resignation, is blaming the younger generations. And that is not the problem. So leadership, they need to step up and to create the environment that will accommodate the generations. That doesn't mean giving them whatever they ask for, because remember, part of the problem is that they were brought up by being given a lot of the things that they asked for. You want to watch a movie? When I grew up, just to tell you how it works, in the 1970s, if you want to watch a movie, there was no computer, there was no streaming. You went to the movie theater. Okay. There was no Netflix or any of this stuff. Now, with the younger generations, if they want to watch a movie, they can watch it at any time that they want to watch it. And that's not their fault. They're used to that. But in the corporate world doesn't work like that. So you're taking this mindset and trying to put them into a 1970s mindset of shareholder value. And when it doesn't work, people just leave. And you cannot treat people as just look at output only. You've got to look at people as having feelings and what can they bring to the table here. There's so much that these generations can bring to the table. Like Nadia mentioned a while ago, they're digitally savvy and they can do so much. Like this poor young woman that you mentioned that got fired as a receptionist at the hotel. That's a perfect example of what I'm talking about here, of a leader not understanding that generation. This was her day off, right? She didn't do this on company time. It was her day off. She has a life. She has a right to vote, right? So does he, by the way. He has a right to vote. And why is he firing her? Well, that's an abuse of power. That's an abuse of power.
Absolutely.
It just isn't right. Yeah. So,
Paul.
So we got Regina here. Regina, thank you. Regina saying she agrees with you. Leadership must have empathy. It's a must. We've got Easy Peace Olachukwu from the UAE. Yes, is here from the UAE. encouraging
Wow.
you, Paul. So thank you for tuning in so much. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Please do tee up any questions that any of you have for us in the chat, and we'll be happy to do it that way. Padre John is saying, great speech, Paul, as well. Thank you, Padre, for that. So yeah. So Paul, anything further is there anything further you'd like to add to this at this point?
Yeah. When I started Green Inspire Foundation, by the way, our vision is to love God and to inspire the emerging generation to develop character and cultivate the spirit of leadership in a fast-changing and disruptive world. Okay. I just want to give you a quick statistics of the state where I am in Nigeria. It is called Benue State. It's called Benue State. And I'm in the capital of that state. I'm the capital city of that state. Now, in last year, 2021, just in the capital city, over 100 young boys got themselves killed via cultism-related wars. That is gang wars. Most of them teenagers, young adults, okay? And then there's also high rise of teenage prostitution, sex trading. And then there's also increase in drugs and substance abuse. Now, the reason for most of this is because of lack of orientation, So what my organization does is to help reorient this emerging generation of leaders to achieve personal development and say no to negative social culture. Just last week, we signed an agreement to start a leadership club in one of the elite schools in this city, to start a leadership club for teenagers in this city. And we're having that once in a week for 45 minutes. We'll just have time with the teenagers in that school, and we do different things, different activities, talk to them about leadership, personal development, give them team assignments and all that. And this is just to help build their mindsets even before they get ready for the corporate world, because that's what is lacking in the educational system in Africa. They just train you through school to graduate from school and begin to look for a government job. And the government are not creating any jobs. So the earlier these young people understand this and begin to build that entrepreneurship mindset, the better for them. Leadership is like a gold mine.
Yeah,
the earlier you begin to dig, the earlier they begin to get themselves equipped for the corporate world, the better for them. It becomes like a second nature. And then when they graduate out of school, even if they can't find the government job in quotes, they can create their own jobs. Even get other people employed in doing. And that's where we are. But as it is, a whole lot needs to be done. With a lot of hands need to come on deck to keep doing this. Africa is a big virgin ground for leadership to begin to thrive. Africa is a big virgin ground for more investment to go into leadership development, personal development, and all that. And we hope and pray that more organizations, more individual corporate bodies will rise up and begin to do the needful, especially the place of mentoring.
Absolutely.
The place of mentoring. Mentoring should begin from childbirth. It should begin when a child is born. The parents should mentor, and when they begin to go to school, the teachers should mentor. When they get to the university, the lecturers, the professors should mentor these people because they know the future better than them. Okay, tell them more about how citizens, because all our pursuit citizens is not just to get well, so rich, and all they have is the money in their bank account. Okay, that's all they have. They don't have the leadership quality. They don't have the leadership spirit. They don't have the leadership character, the attitude, and all that. They just have so much money in their bank account. Okay, so we have a lot to do. And thank you for what you're doing as well. I can't stop thanking you.
Yeah, no,
I
think that's that's a great point, Paul. And thank you for that. I think that as I understand what you just said, to sum it up, because you made a very key point, is that in Nigeria and in many parts of Africa, you've got young people being educated and prepared for government jobs. But the problem is that the government is not creating enough jobs. So you've got people that are prepared for something of which
Absolutely.
there's no availability. Is that correct? Did I get that correct? So and because of that, there's a gap between where the skills have been developed.
Absolutely.
And
Yes,
and
yes.
the market
Yes,
basically
correct. That's correct.
and there's basically no market.
Right.
There's no market for the skills which
That's
all of
right.
the youth have been prepared for. And that's the issue. So
Yeah.
you're one of your
solutions.
one of your proposed solutions is mentors being put in place from a very, very young age. And we've got Padre is making a question here. How do we get good leaders, and what are the best practices, if any, and is it working? And so I think Paul touched upon some of that, Padre, with that. And there's not an easy solution to this, but I'm hoping that the dialogue that we've just had, which includes a few solutions about a few big solutions about Gen X and baby boomer leaders creating a safe environment where people can feel free to communicate their concerns, to say that, hey, there's a problem here. Hey, I'm failing. Can you help me? Hey, I think I applied for the job that I cannot do. Can you please help me find another job? To make that safe. And what Paul is saying is that if we can help to, at a very, very young age, mentor the youth of the country, that is the way to start to reduce the dependency and reverse the model of skilling people up for government jobs that do not exist. And I think that's a very important point here. And that's great. Paul, we've come to the end of the program. I think that we could talk, we'll have to do this again and talk further and deeper about it. So we will in the future. But is there anything before we sign off the air? Is there anything, any closing remarks? What is the main message that you would like this global audience to take away from today?
Yeah, the key thing for today is the global world. We should develop more empathy, more kindness, and we should understand that we all
absolutely. I think that is the key. That
humans, okay, and
yes.
And treat your LinkedIn and nobody told me about you, and nobody told you.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're having a bit of a technical difficulty
About me.
Yeah, Paul, I think we're having
somehow we just got connected.
Yeah.
So it started like that, and today here the world will go merry and go round.
Yes, that's fantastic. Paul, listen, we're out of time. I've got to get off the air here. So I'd like to thank you, Paul. You're doing amazing work. Your journey, your personal journey is truly inspiring to not only myself, but I know to everybody that took the time to tune into this and that is looking to your relevant leadership to help make this a better world for all around you in Nigeria and beyond Nigeria into Africa. And I'm personally grateful for you and what you're doing. And for those of you that tuned in today, I appreciate you taking the time. I hope you were able to get a clear sense of what the challenges that the youth in Nigeria are experiencing. And at the same time, you got a little bit of the United States flavor thrown into the equation from myself about the challenges and the root cause of these problems that are happening here. And that is that the younger generations, this is not their fault, and that the older generations need to step up and create some actions to fill the gaps that are created from a 1970s created system of shareholder value, and start to value the human beings as well. So with that, Paul, we're going to sign off the air. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in to the Packard Network Live, and I'll be back again next week with a very special guest, and details on that will be announced further next week. So with that, I wish everybody a fruitful, safe, and blessed weekend ahead, and I look